What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. And in today's video, we are back with another preview / prediction video. And today we are here to preview Monday Night Football. It's Lions, it's Seahawks, so let's get it started. Welcome everybody to our video. Glad you guys are here. And yes, we're back with another preview video. Very excited for this one. We're still looking to get the score exactly right. And I feel weirdly kind of good about this one. Like, I think this could be way off or exactly right just because it's a very unique score. So I'm feeling pretty good about this one. Stay tuned to the end for my score prediction. But before we get into this, I know we didn't really do this last week, and we probably won't do this a ton going forward. As I said, we'll kind of break this into two videos. But there was so much news that went on the injury side this week, and now that it is the weekend, it's only right that we at least touch on some of these injury updates because there are some massive injury updates on both sides of the ball. So let's go there first, and then we'll get right into this. Now, Allen Robinson did sign to the 53-man roster, as well as Tim Patrick, with guys hitting IR. Specifically today, Ife Melifonwu was placed on IR, which means he'll miss at least 4 more weeks. Brandon Joseph will still be the acting backup safety in that spot. Good thing is we have Kirby and Brian Branch. It stinks we haven't seen Ife Melifonwu, though, yet. Also, he's going to join Derek Barnes and Marcus Davenport on IR. We know those two guys were on there. Frank Ragnow is also out for this game, but he may not get placed on IR. Dan Campbell said early in the week, like, hey, we're going to have him down this week with the torn pec. We have to be smart. It's early in the season. But he could avoid IR, so we'll see how long he's out. He's going to get the bye week after this week, which is fantastic, but he's not going to play. Not sure exactly what the plan is for that. We expect Graham Glasgow's going to kick the center, and then it's just who's going to kick at left guard. Either KO'd or Michael Neese likely. Now, I actually wouldn't hate the idea of just plugging in a guy like Michael Neese at center and leaving Graham Glasgow at guard. I think guard can be a little bit more exposed in one-on-one pass protection situations. That being said, though, it being the center position with Jared Goff's comfortability with just the snaps in general, you probably want to have a guy you're more comfortable with there, so likely will be Graham Glasgow, and then we'll kick in either KO'd or Michael Neese at guard. I would expect it's probably going to be KO'd at guard. Also, on top of that, Sam LaPorta is actually expected to play this game. He had the ankle sprain. It was concerning, but he's expected to go. And I think when you start looking at Seattle's defense, you start trying to find matchups. Sam LaPorta is in line to potentially be very big for this game in the pass game. I think he could be massive. So to see that news is very important for the Lions, and I think the Lions know how important Sam LaPorta could actually be this week, depending on some of the personnel packages that they put out there. Enos Rakestraw is getting better. He's questionable for this game. Of course, if he can't go, we do have a guy like Kendall Vildor, who stepped in a little bit last week. But outside of that, the Lions actually did get a lot of good news on their injury report. A lot of guys we weren't really sure of. Alex Anzalone, Brian Branch, we'll have to see. He has to clear protocol. Had full participation this week twice, so Brian Branch could be on his way to playing. Outside of that, Levi, Ali McNeil, we expect all these guys to go. Dan Skipper, and again, Alex Anzalone as well, which is a huge one. Flip side, Seattle, they're going through it, specifically on their defensive line. Nwosu, who was thought could be back this week for Seattle. Maybe their best pass rusher is not going to be back this week. On top of that, they also are going to be without Leonard Williams, who is their big money man on that interior of the defensive line, and their first-round pick, Byron Murphy, which, if you watch Seattle, I don't know what his statistics are exactly, but if you watch Seattle, he's been a very impactful piece. You feel his presence all the time at that nose tackle position, so not having him is crucial, especially for the run defense, which has been strong so far this season. So guys like Jaron Reed, it's familiar names, Jonathan Hankins, Jaron Reed, familiar names are going to have to step in. Mike Morris, who's probably going to kick in a little bit as well towards the interior. And then because not having Nwosu or Boye Mafe, who's kind of stepped in as the best pass rusher, we expect to see guys like Draymond Jones, Travis Gibson, the former Bear, and also still Derek Hall is going to get his snaps. Derek Hall kind of becomes like the standout on that defensive front. So major injuries there. Their positive is they could be getting Jerome Baker back. He's questionable for this game, and I think linebacker, off-ball linebacker, has been a big concern for Seattle from what I've seen. So getting Jerome Baker back would really help solidify that. And then also Kenneth Walker may get a go in this game, which would also be big for this offense because I think just looking at the run scheme, not a very great rushing attack from what I've seen, but I think Kenneth Walker opens up so much more for this team, especially with all the outside rushing scheme that they like to implement. I think with Zach Charbonnet, so much of it was inside. I think Kenneth Walker potentially expands that, getting back for a game like this. So they're getting a couple key players back, but they have a lot of massive injuries on the defensive line, which completely changes the way that this team is built and what you expect of Seattle. Those are massive, and those are their playmakers. Those are the guys that create blown blocks. So 2 big injuries on the defensive line. Now let's get into this. Let's start off with the Seattle Seahawks offense, what I expect in this game, what I think we'll see, and maybe what the Lions could do to try to slow this Seahawks offense down, which has been pretty efficient, especially in the passing game this season. I was actually surprised to see how much they passed the the football, specifically on early downs. This is a heavy passing offense, a vertical passing offense, as we know, but Geno Smith has done an excellent job so far this season. And man, I get it. Geno Smith, he's not that good. That's what people think. And then he scores a ton against us. Geno Smith is a very good quarterback. Geno Smith is really good under pressure, very good statistically against the blitz as well. This is a very poised quarterback that's super accurate. Geno Smith has played his butt off, and I think he's getting some attention now that they're 3-0. Don't overlook this guy. He's really good. But we'll start the rushing attack first. Find an offensive line right now that is not fantastic, specifically on the interior. Laken Tomlinson at left guard has struggled a little bit there. I think he struggled with power rushers, from overpass rush moves, some bull rush, some push-pull opportunities. I think he's had some struggles there that should open up for Lee McNeil. Levi is really who I circle in that matchup, working against a guy like Laken Tomlinson. Connor Williams at the center position hasn't been fantastic either, I think, especially for their run game. The matchup with DJ Reader on paper, I absolutely love that. I think that could be a game changer. And then Anthony Bradford at right guard has maybe been their worst offensive lineman when on the field in this group. And now having Forsyth at right tackle, which is a guy that we've seen before. We've seen Nate Hutchinson match up against him before. And look, their backup tackles handled business last time, but it's not their starter. So again, another backup for the opposing team with Forsyth at right tackle. The big thing as a group here is that you will get pre-snap penalties. You will get false start penalties. That's something that they do. So we have to take advantage of those opportunities when we get those, because they will give you those. That being said, though, they haven't ran the ball that well this season. 3.9 yards per carry, 25th, 97 yards per game, 22nd, 25th in expected points added. But to me, the big thing has been also just not having Kenneth Walker. I think schematically speaking, it's made them much more of an inside rushing team, and because of very inconsistent play between that interior, it just doesn't lead to a lot of great opportunities for Zach Charbonnet, who I think is a good runner, but he's the perfect combination to Kenneth Walker. Vision, contact balance, tough runner, gets downhill, but so much of their offense has seemingly been relegated to inside zones. I think that opens up this week. I think you get more of their stretch run plays, you get more of their outside rushing attack, some of the sweeps, the things that they like to get wide on. I think that opens up this week. Now, this is another offensive line that, from what I've seen, does like to lean on that left side. They do like to lean behind Charles Cross, so I expect that to be the case again in this game, and he's been a fantastic blocker. They've really all ran block pretty well. You get a lot of zone rushing for this offense, but you also get a lot of inside zone rushing as well, again, getting downhill, a lot of outside zone rushing as well behind a guy like Charles Cross, and they've ran block pretty well, specifically at that first level, not just giving up immediate penetration. For me, the matchup there to watch is going to be DJ Reader against Connor Williams. That's the guy that can kind of disrupt all of the outside and inside zone rushing attack that they have, force them to kind of live in that outside rushing attack and roll with Kenneth Walker in those spots. And I think we'll do well against these combo blocks. LA gave us some trouble, but I like our personnel matchup. But as you can see, the real key to me is actually going to be on this backside. It's filling in, whether that's linebackers, defensive backs, filling into these backside gaps. I think we're going to force a lot of cutback lanes for Kenneth and for Zach Charbonnet, just because I don't think they'll get a lot of immediate movement towards the front side. So the backside, and the way that Seattle will play off of that is RPO looks. They'll read defenders, and they'll do that on second and long situations, kind of like an extension of their run game. So I would expect to see that mixed. It's going to be a tough balance, but it's just another reason why the linebacker is going to be so crucial, because it's not just coverage, it's also handling these running responsibilities. To me, DJ Reader can dominate that matchup. I know what DJ Reader is capable of. I know how he can move laterally. I know his agility. I think that's a matchup that we can dominate. The other one for me is going to be on those stretch run plays. We always talk about the tight end position, but truly I think it's going to be massive in this game. I think Noah Fant has had real problems as a run blocker, not with effort, but with just producing. And I think for us in this game, whoever is that sandbacker on the line of scrimmage, if that's Ben Neiman, maybe it's Jalen Reeves-Maybin at times, because I think we'll want some flexibility there this week. Whoever that is, maybe it's Jack Campbell, also defensive ends, edge rushers, whoever is handling the tight end one-on-one on some of these outside run plays, which they may have to get into because I don't know how much success they'll actually have in the interior. They may have to lean into that when they run the football. That is going to be the matchup to watch, because I don't think Noah Fant's been great in those spots, and that's a matchup that I think that we have to dominate at the point of attack. We have to take advantage of that matchup specifically. And again, I expect Kenneth Walker to be utilized in a lot more of those spots. You do go outside zone. A lot of times you get that again towards the weak side. You will get some pin pull looks. I just think that outside rushing attack is going to be kind of all thrown out there this week just because they need to open that up, and I don't think they're going to have much success on the inside. You may get a couple of zone counter runs. You may get some of that. They'll try to down block some of our defensive linemen if they think that's where they can get the advantage. But again, I think a lot of it's going to go outside this week just because of where they're at. In passing the football, Geno Smith, like I said, he's been really strong this season. And the one statistic that I put on the screen was him against the blitz this season. He's completing 78% of his passes, 2 touchdowns, an interception, basically 400 yards passing. He's also been very good statistically when under pressure as well. You know, it concerns me more than I think any of the other quarterbacks that we've played to this point. I know the other guys have maybe had the legs, which we know Geno has as well, where if you don't account for him, he will take off and run, which makes it difficult. But to me, it comes back to the accuracy and the fact that him being under pressure doesn't affect him a ton. He usually does a really good job playing with a ton of poise, still being accurate as long as he can get the football out. As long as he doesn't have an unblocked defender that he's not aware of, he does a great job of still getting the ball out of his hands. And he also does a really nice job of pre-snap reads, getting a sense on where is the strength defensively, where is there underneath zone help, and where can I basically overload it, right? Where can I get 2 guys in one area and take advantage of that? He does a really good job in all of those phases, and to me, that's what makes him so dangerous as a passer. Is there's a real balance, I think, when you play Geno of, hey, we want to blitz, we may want to play zone coverage, but we're going to leave something open underneath, and if we don't get it to the point where it's an unblocked player against this offensive line that's had some struggles, or he just looks to the wrong side of the field first, he gets his eyes wrongly set, he's going to have a lot of success.
Here's one of the rare examples where Geno doesn't get his eyes in the right place and he finds the wrong man here in the seam at the top of the screen. So notice how at the top of the screen, you have a slot corner over the slot receiver. So he's going to set his eyes towards the bottom of the screen at the snap. They're going to drop out an edge, Miami does, so he gets away from that. However, you get the blitz on that side, so now he doesn't find the seam route and instead goes to the curl. So he still finds his check down, but he doesn't find the right read.
And he can create big plays out of underneath passes in those spots, even though they're a vertical passing offense. I think for the Lions, one thing we may see definitely this week is utilizing defensive linemen to drop out into coverage, trying to bring defensive backs to try to get unblocked pressure looks, but still dropping out and maybe not even creating blitz opportunities, but dropping out to try to create passing lanes and just force Geno beyond that first read where he sees pre-snap that he thinks is going to be there that's ultimately not going to be there. Whether that's Hutchinson dropping, whether that's your Sam Backer dropping into those spots. I think for the Lions, that's going to be key this week to try to just potentially create some negatives within this offense by doing that. But as I said, it's a vertical passing offense. They pass a lot. They pass a lot on first down as well. And for me, there's a couple things that I think that they like to do. Middle field crossers is a big part of their offense. They love their little hitches. One thing that you'll notice especially is if you go to a lot of man coverage, you're going to get those mesh setups. They're going to want to create rub routes. But specifically that stood out to me, and I know all the talk's going to be about DK Metcalf because he can do things where he doesn't have to be open. He can still make the play. Jackson Smith and Jigba has been awesome in this offense. I think he's one of their just man coverage beaters. They get man-to-man. They wait for JSN because they expect him to get open. All the talk's about Lockett, it's about Metcalf. To me, the talk should be about Noah Fant because especially if you're sitting in a lot of zone coverage, Noah Fant has been the guy to give teams major problems. He gave New England a ton of problems in zone coverage. He has been a safety valve for Geno Smith. He's been very accurate when throwing to Noah Fant. He is the guy that I would absolutely circle for this offense, whether that's play action passes or it's not play action passes. It's straight dropping, it's staying underneath, it's check downs, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they're not great on third down. I was going through my chart, charting all their plays, first, second, third down, and it was a very limited amount of success on third down. However, they stay out of third down a ton. The amount of first and second down plays that I had noted versus third down plays was incredible. They are very efficient, first, second down, very efficient. They pass a lot, so they avoid third down situations in general a ton. Now, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, they'll do some kind of extensions of the run game. You'll get rollout plays, you'll get RPO looks, but anything beyond like a 3rd and 3, they're not great at. They stay out of those situations really well, and I think that's what their offense thrives on right now. So to me, it's about a guy like Noah Fant. I think when you look at this offense, in a way, you have to play the balance, but I want them to push the ball down the field rather than just living underneath and being efficient, because Geno will do that. He'll take advantage of it, and he'll pick up a ton of yards. And the more and more you allow them to do that, you're going to get run after catch opportunities. This is an offense where I want first down to be a negative because they tried to take a shot and they didn't actually have it and it was incomplete. Obviously, you run the risk of giving up big plays in that spot. Of course you do, but he's willing to take those shots, and I think I would rather live with him missing a couple of those plays downfield, getting them into third down situations where I know we can get out the field because we've been very good this season, versus having him be successful first, second down, 6 yards, 5 yards, 6 yards. I don't want to live in that game defensively. Certain teams I do. This is not one of them.
Now, I believe one of the best ways to consistently get a quarterback potentially beyond his first read is sitting in man coverage. We've seen it against the Packers in the past because you go to zone, you can find beaters, you can get your eyes there, you can find the holes. But if you sit in man and you're waiting for that first read and he just doesn't get open, now you're forced to get to number 2 just because he did not get open. So then the balance is, do we blitz out of it, or do we just drop and we only bring 4 rushers? If you do blitz, you can force him to make that pass. So if you win, you can force negatives. The downside is like I said, Geno doesn't seem to fear pressure whatsoever. So as long as as he can get the ball off, he's fine with it. Obviously, you can get some bad throws, and that's where turnovers can pop up, but he is fine dealing with pressure. I'll talk about this more in a second, but I don't dislike a 4-man rush a lot in this game. But man coverage, ideally, would be there.
I think linebackers are going to be crucial, especially in zone coverage, because to me, they must be aggressive in those zone coverage drops. You're going to get quick hitches. You're going to get quick curls. You're going to get quick spot routes. You're going to get the running back involved in the passing game a ton. So those guys just jumping on some of those underneath passes, not allowing Geno to immediately get to his 1-step drop, 3-step drop balls out of his hands. Force him to hitch. This is not a great offensive line where even if you blitz sometimes, you don't always feel the advantage of blitzing if they pick it up unless it's a complete free rusher because their offensive line isn't that great anyway. And I want to believe that we should win this matchup in a lot of different ways with where our defensive line is at versus where their offensive line is at without blitzing. That being said, though, the only way that's going to be consistently effective is forcing him beyond the first read. So I don't have an issue with not being incredibly aggressive in this game and blitzing, especially on early downs. I just think in those spots, I'd rather him be forced to push the ball a little bit further downfield, want to go down the field, and we have to take away some of those underneath concepts, force them beyond that first read as often as possible. And to me, that comes back to all the linebackers, whether that's the edge dropping into coverage, whether that's Anzalone, who's really good in that spot underneath zone. I expect him to thrive in this game. Jack Campbell, these guys have to be really good underneath to just force him to hold in the ball a little bit longer and allow that pass rush to naturally win, because I think it will in this game. What concepts that you'll see from them? High-low concepts, especially when you're going two deep safeties. They get a lot of two deep safety teams, so you're going to get a lot of high-low concepts out on the numbers as well. And one thing that Geno does well is he keeps the full field reads alive. If he sees a pre-snap, he's not afraid to go complete field side and throw a 5-yard pass. Has no issue with doing that. There's really nothing off the table for Geno Smith. He has a big arm. Because of how much two high safety teams will run, a lot of times quarters looks, but cover 6, cover 4, we did that against Seattle in the past too, because maybe you want to bracket in DK, you don't want to give the big play, or cover 4 looks, you want to keep everything kind of underneath, you limit your players underneath. I think at times the Lions wouldn't be a bad idea to just bring a 3-man rush. I wouldn't hate that either, but with those looks, cover 4, those kind of things, you're going to get high-low concepts. They also love to utilize drive concepts where you're going to get drags and digs, a lot of levels, that kind of comes back to it, right? High-low on the outside, middle of the field, kind of creating the high-low, a lot of levels concepts for Geno Smith, and again, he's pretty accurate in those spots, and he's willing to stand in against pressure, and then a lot of crossers and dig routes, a lot of vertical concepts that are going to continue to work downfield. You'll get the clear out concepts because of that, you'll get 4 verts because of that, you'll get 3 deep curls, and then a drag underneath it. You're going to get a lot of vertical route concept, deep posts, double moves, fades, wheels, a lot of vertical concepts that you're going to get in this game. So a lot of teams will play 2 deep safeties to kind of try to minimize that and trust their front up front, and I wouldn't surprise me if the Lions came in with a very similar plan, especially on early downs.
I think we could see a very healthy mix from Aaron Glenn of quarters and cover 6 on early downs, potentially with a 5th rusher attached, blitzing on early downs, then on 2nd and 3rd, leaning into more man-heavy coverage to try to force him to hold onto the football and then trust his front 4 to win. But try to get that ball out faster, so if he wants to take early down shots, he has to make the decision and be decisive to just put the ball in the air and potentially try to earn takeaways that way.
You can play a single high safety, you can give more support to the run, and you can potentially grab an extra defender and put him underneath in those spots. I think that would be ideal for the Lions, but of course then you just run that risk of, hey, you're one-on-one outside. And if that makes Geno want to push the ball, I think that's fantastic. It's just about how does that result play out. Is that playing out on the north side more? If that's creating big plays for them, that's not ideal because their defense has been really good this season. In terms of different coverages, what you can kind of expect, I think cover 3 actually has proven to have a lot of success against this offense, led to a lot of less efficiency passing the football for this offense when teams have gone into cover 3, leaving one-on-one on the outside, being comfortable with having that matchup. It really forces Geno to either take that one-on-one, which they haven't always converted this season anyway, or he has to work through the seams and kind of try to work underneath into that hole, which is the seams, which a lot of times becomes Jackson Smith and Jigba, or it's going to force underneath checkdowns. I think in those spots, cover 3 is a really nice coverage to run. I haven't seen teams lean into it, but it's had a lot of success against this offense, but understandably so because of the 2 weapons they have outside and really the weapons across the board. Teams don't like to sit in cover 3 looks that often, but it has had a lot of success. The downside, the biggest downside here is simply just going to be the reads pre-snap to find out where does he have the opening, where does he have an overload offensively where he can just go there and get the ball out of his hands quickly. So if you can bring some cover 3, but bring it in creative ways where, hey, DB's blitzing, but the edge is dropping out, or man, we're bringing 3 rushers, but we're still going cover 3. If you can do some creative things out of that, I think that's not a bad idea at all. It's quarters looks, which we see again a ton. You're still going to get the one-on-ones to the outside. A lot of times you'll get speed out routes, you'll get out-breaking routes that are still going going to be trying to attack those one-on-one spots, but oftentimes teams run this a ton, especially when they get them into second and long situations. Once you get this offense into second and long situations, if they're incomplete on first because of how much they throw the ball on first down, you're going to get a lot of quick passing concepts in terms of RPOs, screens, design rollouts, get the ball out of his hands, minimize it. And most teams do. I think ideally, if you can play single high safety on early downs, that's what I would like to lean into, cover 1 or cover 3, blitz or not blitz in those spots. If you can blitz, that's great. If you can blitz, that's fantastic, especially on early downs. I think you're a little bit safer doing a cover 1 blitz on early downs than you are on like third down because Gino's so willing to just stand in the pocket. That being said, though, when you get to, again, those second and longs, you're going to get the ball out quickly. You're going to get short pass concepts. You'll get screens. Sometimes you can go all-out blitz to just force them to get the ball out of their hands and force them into that. Then when you get the third and long situations, you're going to get, I think for the Lions defensively, right into their natural strength is cover 1 robber looks. The key is not exactly, I think, bringing as many players as you can, as it's more so about we have to take away the middle of the field. Force him to go on the outside. Force him to not get that middle field look. Force him to get the read too. It's almost that simple where a lot of times if you just force him to the second read, you're going to get a lot of sacks. You're going to get a lot of pressures. You're going to make him uncomfortable, and you'll create turnovers that way. You don't have to get him to read number 4 to get this offensive line into trouble. I don't believe you will, and I'm willing to bet on that 4-man rushes can dominate this day. You just have to get him past read 1 as consistently as possible. To me, that is the key for this game for the Lions defense. So it's going to be a big challenge. Gino has played his butt off this season, but that's kind of what I'm looking for on that side of the ball. I don't love their run game when they get into the red zone because of how they've leaned into the inside zone. They haven't had much success there. So expect RPOs, expect the ball out fast once they start to get a plus territory, but then also expect a lot of outside rushing attack for a guy like Kenneth Walker to try to open that up in this game, which they haven't had recently. And of course, that could come in the way of screens. Now, on the flip side of the ball, Seahawks defensively, they've been pretty darn good this season, right? We see it in just terms of points allowed. Rush defense hasn't been fantastic. 4.4 yards per carry. That's middle of the pack. 116 yards per game. That's middle of the pack. 10th in expected points added. But I think even as solid as that run defense statistic line is, that's not reality as to what they actually have healthy. I think that their linebackers on paper, and when you watch them, are their most inefficient group. I think that's where they have the most issues, and I think that's where you can expose them the most, especially running football, whether that's getting up to the second level. I think they have problems handling second-level blocks, especially once their offensive line gets up there and being able to make plays off of it. I also think that you have real problems. They could have some real problems at diagnosing and being a little bit slow with some of counter run plays, which a lot of teams have implemented. Wouldn't be shocked the Lions get back to a lot of their counter runs where they're attempting to down block some of these defensive linemen and just get up to this second level because, again, I think they're inconsistent in those spots. They will play fast. They will plug holes downhill, but I don't trust their eyes, and I don't trust them dealing with blocks consistently and staying on top of the scheme. We saw a big play that New England had where they had the play action with the polar, linebackers bite on it, and completely getting out of the play, their linebacker gives up a tight end screen for it. One of the biggest game, maybe the biggest play of the game for the Patriots offense was literally a tight end screen. I think that they can get into problems in those spots because they have success at that second level. Getting Jerome Baker back would be big. It would kind of settle that. But between guys like Dodson, Thompson, who can play kind of on the line and off the line, and Knight, those are guys that I think we can all attack, especially from the tight end position in terms of blocking. I liked our matchup there on paper as well. So I like using polars to kind of delay these second-level linebackers if possible. And again, the tight ends, using tight ends to block in this game, heavy personnel in terms of Parker Hesse could be very valuable in this game when you're running the football. Now, the balance is going to be finding that with the passing attack because if you use those guys to in the pass game, there's a good chance that they're not going to get open. Their backers, even though they don't have Boye Mafe or Nwosu in this game, still having guys like Thompson and still having Derek Hall, those pieces probably won't be exposed very often in coverage, even if they're asked to drop. And while I don't think their linebackers are great in coverage specifically or in zone, Parker Hesse isn't really like a zone beater. He's not really a coverage beater. So it's going to be a weird balance to try to find of like, do we go heavy personnel because we think that gives us the best advantage running the football? Absolutely. But passing the football, I don't think it gives you the best advantage.
I think the key swing matchup here is going to be those edge defenders. It's going to be those players standing on the line. It's going to be Draymond Jones. It's going to be Derek Hall, who's really strong at the point of attack and can do things just like that. But also the downside, which is I think you can get the edge on them potentially on those stretch run plays. And how does Decker, who's played incredibly well to this point, and Penei Sewell has been dominant against those guys one-on-one, where you could outmatch them physically, but also I trust our ability to move there. That potentially could swing in terms of dominating on the ground versus maybe having a little bit more ineffective success that has some negatives.
Passing the football, your best advantage is less tight ends, 11 personnel, one tight end on the field, take advantage of that. Potentially the Lions get some 2 running back sets in this game to try to find a mix of both. Maybe that's utilizing a guy like Vaki at fullback because of his passing game impact potentially. I think that would make a ton of sense in this game because then potentially you could get the best of both worlds where you could have a lead blocker, you could get an extra body to help run block against these backers, but you could also potentially still get that pass game impact. If you get to the line, you want to check out, you want to go passing attack, you may find more value there than actually using multiple tight ends, or a 6th offensive lineman. So for the Lions, I think 21 personnel, 2 backs is definitely on the table for this game. The football without some of those interior pieces, which are crucial. Outside zone, again, a lot of weak zone running here. I think you're going to probably stay away from Hankins. That to me is the key matchup on the interior because we have a backup center. Well, it's going to be Graham, but it's more so going to be about the backup guard. It's Jaron Reed and it's Hankins against potentially a backup guard in this game and a moving Graham Glasgow. But it's really about Hankins. He was the most consistent presence that I felt. Reed had some flash plays, but Hankins was the consistent presence against the run, against those outside zone rushing attacks. He will be the key. With some other injuries, I love the Lions to kind of lean into what New England did at one point when they got into the red zone. Downhill running, duo style, let's move these guys off the point of attack. I think we're capable of doing that. And then also, because of some of the inconsistencies at linebacker, when you get second and long, hey, we don't have a problem with running it. I don't have a problem with power run plays, running it on 3rd down, just like we did last week against Arizona. But I wouldn't also have an issue with some delayed runs, some draws. Would not have any problem with the Lions doing that running back screens, utilizing some misdirection screens just to get the ball out of our hands, attack these backers, let our offensive linemen run when they are a little bit beat up on the defensive line. I don't think Hankins and Reed pose a threat that we saw a team earlier this season like Tampa Bay did in terms of blowing up these screens. I don't have an issue with Lions using misdirection, ball to their hands, get blockers in the second level, whether that's draws or screens. Think that could be very effective this week. Pass defense has been one of the best in football, simply put. The stats say it. 60% completion percentage, 6th in football. 1 touchdown, 2 picks. 67 pass rating, 2nd in football. Now, we know they haven't played the most prolific passing attacks, but still, regardless, that's an awesome stat line. I do think signing Allen Robinson to the 53 could be useful this week just because of the off coverage that they play and what they do schematically. You can get a lot of reads pre-snap, and then it can be simply just about can your guy win or not. Like, you can figure out what you want, and then you just got to see if your guy can win. Allen Robinson could be valuable in some of the medium throws, some of the underneath throws in this game, quickly towards the numbers, quickly on the outside. Could see him actually having a real value for this game. One of the things that stood out is I didn't feel like when I was watching Seattle, they were the most unpredictable defense. Sure, they had their wrinkles, especially on obvious pass downs and 3rd and long. They would wrinkle things. A lot of cornerback alignments would shift. You'd get a look of like, oh, he's pressing. Oh, no, he's dropping out. Now it's cover 6. You would get some of that. But that's mainly what the gist of it was in terms of their post-snap movement. The other post-snap movement that they would create on early downs were a couple of things. It was cover 2. When they go cover 2, you have to watch double cornerback blitz, and then also cover 3, cornerback blitz, and they'll roll it over, right? They'll put a cornerback at safety, and they'll roll it over in a cloud coverage, right? Cornerback will roll into that, a safety will roll into that cornerback assignment. So that's kind of the gist of, I think, their post-snap movement that I've seen. Mainly, I think the second part of that, which is, the cover 2 double cornerback blitz, the cornerback blitz out of cover 3 into a single eye safety, is to minimize some of the play action attack. And I'm assuming they're going to bring that out in this game because they're going to say, hey, we don't want Goff comfy. Teams have already done that this year. We're not going to allow Goff to sit back there and kind of pick apart the linebackers. We're going to heat them up. So on early downs, we may get some of those looks. That wouldn't surprise me at all. I expect to see that. But the other part is I don't see a ton of like movement in their back end necessarily outside of just cornerback alignments that kind of shift and things like that when they're in really obvious passing down. So obviously it'd be nice to avoid that because I don't think it's as much about the disguise as much as it's just about their personnel and their matchups that they do have and playing fast. They play incredibly fast defensively. That being said, though, for early downs, a must for the Lions to kind of try to avoid some of those negatives by like, I didn't know he was blitzing on the play, is going to be utilizing hard count, and it's a must that the Lions utilize motion in this game. It is an absolute must that we utilize motion, one, to get better matchups when they go to man coverage because they've had a ton of success in man coverage so far this season. We have to try to create leverage in those spots, but then also just get to tell, is he blitzing or is he dropping? It is a must that the Lions utilize motion and hard count in this game, especially on early downs, to find some success. I think they're going to do that a ton in this game. I think for the Lions, the short motions can not only give you a tell of that defensively and force the defense to kind of react and show their hand, but it can also create potential switches when they go to their man coverage if they want to lean into that in this game. You could force switches there, and then you could potentially get breakdowns in coverage. Play a lot of switch man coverage, which we saw like Dallas do against us last season, which is like, hey, we're playing man, but if it breaks into your area, you pass it off. Now I'm the free zone defender. They do that switch man stuff. So it's not going to be as simple as like, oh, we can just create a pick play here. We're going to have to utilize short motion and create levels out of it and try to take advantage, right?
Now, we got a little taste of it in the last clip, but again, these short motions can not only create potential leverage, as you're going to see on this dig route, it breaks into a corner, but if this is a dig route, there's leverage here for this tight end over the middle of the field with the outside corner, which the Lions have faced against like Tampa Bay. They've done this, but also then you could force these linebackers to pass off, and even though they're switching off these routes, they don't move incredibly well laterally. So using a guy like J-Mo or Khalif on these fast motions that are getting this full head of steam, that's a chance to get these guys in spots where they're still not that comfortable.
Oftentimes, if they're going to play man, if they're going to play cover one, they're often going to blitz. And again, they play switch man out of that. So they want to hurry you up and they want to switch it off. That way they don't get wide open routes immediately. But using bunches and short motions, pre-snap movement can create those leverage advantages much faster for your offense. I think we'll see that a lot in this game. And then short yard situation, do a lot of cover three. So not straight man. They're actually going to leave some open zones. They're going to play a lot of cover three in those spots still single high safety looks, which could give us an opportunity to get one-on-one. Here's a little wrinkle as well. And this was the same thing we played this team last time, is because of how they've worked Devin Witherspoon, as he is their starting outside cornerback opposite of Reek Woolen, but he is also their nickel, and he will kick it to the slot when a team goes three receivers. I think it's very valuable in the passing attack to utilize at least three receivers to force Trey Brown onto the field. I think he is their most inconsistent corner in terms of the guy that you fear that he could take the ball away. Reek Woolen, not great at the top of the route. I think at times you can break routes off on him. You could separate with a guy like Allen Robinson quickly on some of those medium routes because he sits in off coverage. The downside is, though, Reek Woolen is very long. He can be dangerous at the catch point. Obviously, he has a history of taking the football away. Trey Brown is their least consistent, and I think that's where you can get St. Brown on matchups. That's where you can get J-Mo just running away from guys in coverage. That's their least consistent corner. Witherspoon is a problem. He's been great. He may follow around St. Brown in this game, and if that's the case, getting Trey Brown on the field to give us a better matchup will be great. The two matchups that I like is Trey Brown at corner and also the tight end position. Mainly, not having 7 tight ends, it's Sam LaPorta. I think Julian Love is good, but I think we can find success there. I think he is hit and miss in coverage when matched up man-to-man. I also think Rayshawn Jenkins, as good as he is in zone and those cover 3 looks and how well he covers underneath, he's not that same player in man coverage. I do like the tight end matchup a ton. I think LaPorta becomes the number 2 in this game. I think he is the number 2 to St. Brown in this game. I think he's aligned to have a very big game as long as he is actually healthy. He is the guy that could take off. We saw New England, even though they kind of just run their offense through tight ends, have big games with their tight ends. I don't love their linebackers either in zone, so I think it opens up real zone holes here. I think the guy that's going to have a very big game as like who's the guy that emerges that's not St. Brown is going to be Sam LaPorta, and we will officially see that this week. Again, some of the coverages that you'll see, second and medium, you'll get some of your, classic 2 high looks, cover 6, cover 2. You'll get some classic cover 2 from this defense. As I said, they love to do cover 3, especially on first down. First down is a little bit different. They go cover 3. They'll play their quarters looks. They'll play that off man, so that's why you can get those quick out-breaking routes on the outside. And then underneath, you could challenge those linebackers. Though they do play with good depth, you could challenge them, especially with a good running attack in this game. And then they'll do the cover 3. So again, still underneath looks. Jenkins because the key because he's very good at safety and underneath coverage. So I think the big body target becomes the best option. Also short motion to create advantages in those spots. And then on third down, again, still go cover 3. They will blitz a lot on. They will definitely blitz on third down, and they'll also go to, again, those cover 1. They'll go to those switch looks defensively. They'll switch man looks as well. And if they get you backed up, they'll go back to their 2 high safety, cover 6. They'll do a lot of that. But cover 1 really comes out on second and third down. Meanwhile, first down will be more so of kind of your straightforward zone, cover 3 or cover 4. But they've been really good on all 3 downs to this point this season. 26% on third down. It's 4th in football. 4th in the red zone defensively as well. Now, the big thing here, get in the red zone, you expect to see that they're not going to just sit in the same coverage. Once you get inside about the 20, again, cover 1, they're going to go man up in those spots. They're going to switch things off because the field gets condensed. Once you get inside about the 5, they're going to go red 2. They're going to play zone coverage, short yardage situations. It makes sense because that's what they do on short yardage situations anyway. They'll play cover 3. So on short yardage situations towards the goal line, they're going to play zone still. They don't need to play man. They'll play red 2 coverage, and they'll trust themselves to pass it off. So that's where you can get back of the end zone looks. That's where you can get high point passes, high-low created with corner routes towards the pylon.
Which is where in the past we see a guy like Josh Reynolds who kind of delay over the middle of the field and break through the seam. Now that could be Tim Patrick. But then also a guy like St. Brown or Jahmyr Gibbs, who again I love in this matchup outside of tight ends because I think you should attack these linebackers and edge rushers dropping out. I think Gibbs should be involved. Vaki should be involved. But these little angle routes, they may even put St. Brown at running back. These little angle routes delaying through the traffic for catch and run.
That's where the back of the end zone really opens up, and those red 2 looks over the middle of the field. That's where that's going to be crucial. It's, again, another place where Sam LaPorta could really make himself felt, but also a guy like Tim Patrick who kind of came along last week getting his feet in bounds on the sideline, things like that. Again, the hard count, the motion, very crucial on third and long. We get into third and long situations, utilize hard count because you'll get tells on what they're going into, and a lot of times, again, 2 deep safeties, Tampa 2 looks, cover 6, you'll get a lot of those back coverages in those spots. They're not going to be too over the top when they get you backed up. So I'm looking at this one from that side of the ball. I think the Lions are going to have success running it. I think they have to have success. I think the matchup just makes sense. It could be a lot more inside rushing, but I think the thing to watch is how the Lions use their personnel. What personnel do they lean into in this game? Did they lean old school into, say, 6 offensive line? We're going to run heavy. We're going multiple tight ends again. Could make a ton of sense. If that's because that could be easily simply the Lions' best matchup on paper is that's our matchup. We're not going to stray away from it. We don't trust their linebackers. This could be another game where the Lions really want to limit how much they actually have to pass the ball, how much they have to put the ball in the air, how much they risk turnovers, because I think you lose the turnover battle team like this, you're really in trouble. That being said, I think there's going to be potentially a lot of possessions because of how much Seattle throws the football. The Lions' overall game plan could be short in the game. Don't let them throw the ball as much. They play from behind. They're going to be a completely different team because now they're going to have to be forced to push the ball, which actually I think plays into our benefit. The Lions, I think, will want to shorten the game, run the heck out of the football, and simplify it for Jared Goff in this game. I think that's going to be ideal because it's not going to be about what craziness are they doing in the back end. It's just trying to find matchups. Lions find matchups they can exploit in the pass game. Again, simply put, I think you go 11 personnel, you take those matchups, and you go at them. But on paper, your best matchup is simply the run game. And I think the Lions will try to shorten it. They're going to want to take away possessions from a team like Seattle that usually plays with a ton of possessions. That would be ideal. We'll see if it plays out like that. So obviously, early in the week, my score prediction was 34-10 Lions. I think that we could run away with this game, but after going through this, going through it, I have way too much respect for this team. Oh, like that? I think it's possible. I think if we build up an early lead, we could run away with this game. I think the Lions get up 10, we could run away with this game. Even though they pass a lot, I think we could just run away with it. We could force turnovers, which Geno hasn't really had at this point, and they could get into trouble really fast. I think we could run away with this because then we could just lean heavy on that run game, and I think they'll have major problems because they'll be forced to deal with that. That being said, though, that's ideal. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. I think they're going to get a lot of possessions. That's what they're going to try to do. Lions will try to shorten that. So I got the Lions winning this one 28-16 at home. That's how I see this one playing out. We'll be back with our players to watch as we get through this weekend, probably with Rad. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What's your score prediction? Thank you, Bob, for watching, and I'm out.